In yesterday's Washington Post, there was an article quoting some social scientists talking about a phenomenon called affective polarization. And affective polarization is basically sort of a visceral dislike of people who are different than you, the opposition. There are individuals who tend to think or so much think positive about those who are similar to them, and that's very natural. But it's also, they say, evolutionary natural for people to just think very negatively of people who are different. And that can evolve to a situation where they don't just disagree with people, but they develop a very negative feeling, including prejudice and hate. And it can get extremely even thinking the people who are different than them are not as human as they are. Well, welcome to one of our vlogs from St. Mark's Episcopal in Dalton, Georgia, on a very cold weekend here in Dalton. And hopefully by the time you watch this, it'll be much warmer, but we're having a terrible cold. Affective polarization, that sounds like a fancy word for something of hate and prejudice against people who are not like yours. And tragically, there's so many examples today in politics in the world and culturally. But also what concerns me is there's a lot of examples of this in our religious lives, our religious beliefs and affiliations, and even among denominations, within denominations and within congregations sometimes that, just this dislike of people who disagree and are a little bit different. And we're tempted by this, that we to divide ourselves, to try to silence other people, and to hate people we see as different. And that's very dangerous, particularly within a congregation or denomination, and we all know examples of this. Today's cold and this weekend's cold reminds me of the story by Hans Christian Andersen from the 1800s, 1844, I think, when he wrote this. Published this called The Snow Queen, and most of you are very familiar with The Snow Queen, where it begins with evil trolls who have a mirror that distorts images and makes everything look bad and ugly. And they take this around causing havoc with that. It shows nothing good or beautiful, but everything bad and ugly. And as the story goes on, the mirror splinters and the remains goes to earth, and really affects earth because the splinters enter people's hearts and make people only see bad and evil in others. Well, we're in a similar situation right now with this affective polarization, that we're tempted, by affective polarization, that our hearts only see the bad and ugly in people who are different than us. And I think that's what's going on in our society right now, like it did in the Snow Queen. So this is the opposite of what Jesus instructed us to do. In the Gospel of John, chapter 13, Jesus says, "Everyone will know you," talking to his disciples, "everyone know you are my disciples if you love one another." Well, the antidote to this affective polarization and the Christian response to affective polarization is that is so damaging to not just our society, but also to our souls to be infected by this, is to love, and love in the forms of empathy, forgiveness, respect, mercy, and compassion. We in this time and in this situation in which we find ourselves with the divisions in our country and our churches, this is still how Jesus calls us to behave as Christians, the same as he did 2,000 years ago. Empathy, forgiveness, respect, mercy, and compassion are the Christian response to affective polarization. And for that we say, thanks be to God.